Welcome to Martini Time and following the Dharma Trail. Happy trails to you. Remember I grew up with the Roy Rogers and the Singing Cowboys, and happy trail, I could just, Roy Rogers and Dale Evans singing happy trails to you. And so that's the Dharma Trail. It's a happy trail. And I'm 81 and I'm happy. And I say, if you're 81 and you're not happy, don't bother. So, as Jackie Gleason said, how sweet it is. So, on the Dharma Trail today, I picked up a few little ideas I've been writing about, and I'll get my straightened up here. I'm watching this in a mirror so I can see myself here. I've been writing about the woman's wave, the two waves we've had now a year apart that have drawn the greatest numbers of not just women, but primarily women, marching in spontaneous organized marches all over the country, if not the world. And, so it can't be all arranged by George Soros, you see. So something's going on. And, at 81, I take a wide angle view. I mean, if you're 6 years old, you have a very short view. And if you're 20 years old, you have a little longer view. And so every decade you live, you have a little wider view of life. It starts out very narrow, and it gets wider and wider and wider. So there's no end to wide, you see. There's no end to wide. And that's understanding. The wider the view, the angle, the wider the understanding. All the pieces fit. See, so when things happen, like the Women's March last year, at the day after Trump's inauguration, and this year, the day after his anniversary, these are two dots. And what does it mean? Now, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, got the name Mark Twain because that is what the riverboat navigators or pilots used to mark the depth of the water. I think that was it. They would throw a rope out with a rock on it, and it would tell them how deep the water was. And I think Mark Twain would be, I'm not, but that was a mark, was the call of a particular depth, I believe. But the point is, he was a riverboat pilot, and one of his books about the riverboat, which he loved and dearly, was about the pilot sees ripples and swirls and whirlpools and reads them as part of the river. I don't want to go over there. That little ripple means a sandbar, or that ripple means a log, or something. But other people, it's just the river. That's that. But the river pilot connects the dots, gets an understanding of what's beneath the surface. So these two women's marches, this blue wave, they're saying, expected to crash upon our shores in November of this year, you see, is the Pink Tsunami. That's what I just called it. Maybe somebody else has too. It's going to be a pink tsunami. Now, what's the really wide-angle view here? The shorter view, the shorter the view, short view would say, they're just circumstantial, doesn't mean anything. What do women know? What are they marching for? They march for anything. Like in Avatar, when the CEO of the Sky People said, what, the home tree? What does that mean? It's just a tree. These people worship any tree. You pull that tree up, there's another tree. It's just trees, Jump, switch trees. Doesn't mean anything. He couldn't read the signs. He was not a river pilot. And so if you want to be a river pilot and understand what's happening in history, you have to have a wide-angle view, you see. Now, my wide-angle view includes philosophy and Zen and yoga and my personal spiritual practice of meditation and study and Eckhart Tolle and Alan Watts and Joseph Campbell and on and on and on. I've been doing this for not 81 years, but since 1957. That's when I first read Thomas Merton. And I was in a submarine. And reading Thomas Merton in a submarine, and Thomas Merton, I was fascinated with him because he went to a monastery and took the vow of silence. Whew, run silent, run deep. He went down, you see, disappeared. And then he began to write from his submarine, and all of his books came bubbling up to the surface, and we read them, you see. And he began his journey, describing his journey. And so, the wide angle. So I'm trying to point out, how wide the angle can get. And the longer you live, the wider your angle gets, the wider your lens. I'm referring to a photographer's camera bag. You've got a narrow focus, you've got a zoom lens, and you've got a wide angle lens. And usually a good wide angle lens is going to be a lens by itself. And then, or you can have a zoom lens that'll zoom right in and then wide out, you see. Well, we all live in a zoom in, and we need to wide out to get understanding. So what's the understanding of the Pink Tsunami? Well, let's go. Everything I know comes from movies, metaphorically. And in the Avatar, you have a conflict between the sky people and the Navi. Now, the sky people are metaphors for the masculine paradigm, the masculine mind, the patriarchal mind, the analysis, the mind that we're living in. We're living in a yang world. It's active. It's exclusive. It sees everything as a thing. It's a narrow focus thing. You focus in on something, take it apart, get down to the cause in this. You focus it. Science, scalpel. Let's understand a frog. Let's cut it up and look at its parts. You see, analysis, exclusive. You got to get rid of all of the extras. Get down to the cause. You see, and so the Navi represent the opposite force, the yin, you see, the female. So you got the male yang and the female yin. Now the female yin, if you know in Taoism, which is the yin yang, they're balanced. Not one over the other, and they kind of revolve around. It's a dynamic image, the yin and the yang. But this, the yin is passive, receptive, inclusive, just in the family. You got the father is the yang, the mother is the yin. And in the cosmos, you have the female principle, the goddess, and you have the male principle, the yang. You have Yahweh of the Old Testament, and you have the mother goddess. That was the goddess of the region of the world before the patriarchs came, before the Abrahamic religions came, you see. Before the male gods came, there was the goddess. When you go back in archaeology, the first god you find is a little female goddess. She is the mother, And then the father came. Well, this, you look at a family. Now, the old families, I'm jumping around, but I'm connecting dots, so hang in there. And if you go back in TV, I remember the first TV show, one of the first TV shows was Father Knows Best. And a lot of these early ones were about the father. And even in the 50s, the father comes home, he's in his coat and tie, and the wife is there with the slippers and the pie, the slippers and the pipe and the newspaper. Father's home. And so father sits down and the family and the kids gather around, and the wife's got her apron on and she's going to serve dinner, you see. And at the dinner table, the father sits at the end of the table and he kind of like dictates the conversation of the table. And if there's any discipline to do, the father disciplines the wife, the mother. Wait till your father gets home. And the kids, So father knows best. And then, of course, you get the shift, you see, where the shift in the families, the father then becomes kind of like a Dagwood, a Dick Van Dyke, kind of a fall over the stool father. and the mother, and the shift is coming. Well, there's been this shift slowly, last 50 years, you see, from the father knows best to the mother knows best. The wise, the mother knows, And so there's been a shift in every which way in our culture from dominant male principle to female principle rising. Even the latest movement in the sexual harassment is women saying enough. We've had enough. We're no longer going to be treated as sexual objects in the workplace, where we have to work in order to provide for the family because our economy no longer supports a single earner. You see, it used to be you get a job, men get your job, he can provide a life for family. You buy a house and get a car. The wife doesn't have to work. So she's a homemaker, you see. Now the wife has to work. Everything changes. That's equal. But we have this still out of balance, yang over yin. Men make more, and men get to treat the people that work with them as sexual objects or entertainment. And then they use double binds and manipulation to get their way, you see. And so that's been challenged. And so this pink tsunami coming is a challenge to yang power. And this is not just Trump. It's not just about this political season. This is a bigger movement. Because and you can see it even in capitalism and socialism. Now what is capitalism but a male economic system? It focuses on the power of the individual, and the goal is to make profit, to become wealthy. This goes back to Calvin. This goes back to the early capitalism that was born in Europe, and basically it is male power through wealth. You create jobs. I mean, it works. I'm not against capitalism. It works, but it has its limitations. It has its counter, you see. Everything has its own opposite. Why? Nature is in balance. The universe is in balance, and when it gets out of balance, it restores balance. One way or another, balance will be restored. So when the yang gets out of balance with the yin, balance will be restored, and that is done in human society through social movements or revolution. Now, we don't have revolutions in our society, fortunately, because we have a constitution that controls revolution. The Constitution is controlled revolution. The revolution happens every 4 years when you elect a new president or Congress, you see. That's controlled revolution. But there are some things that the Constitution doesn't allow, which is the shift in, doesn't allow to happen naturally. It has to happen through the rising of movements that change the way people vote, and that shifts the power in the Congress and in the presidency. And what we're watching today is a shift in power on a very wide scale. Now let's just go back. I'll finish up with the difference between capitalism and socialism. So today, those who are yangs are capitalists, and strong yangs are going to vote for Trump because he's a strong yang. He's male power. Females are trophies. Females adorn him, surrounded by females, but he's the center, you see. He's the tower. And this is not just Trump. This is the system, the value system. Okay, so socialism, which is now unfortunately associated with communism, which is like the extreme socialism, is basically a threat to capitalism and the yang, because socialism is yin. Now what is yin? It's inclusive. And you can go back to the mother and father. Now the mother's drive, her love, is inclusive. All my children. I love all my children, all my family. I don't discriminate, short ones, tall ones, healthy, unhealthy, black, white, I don't care. They're all my children. That's the mother. And the father is judgmental. And for a purpose. I mean, he says, you're not ready. You don't measure up. You got to get your act together. Get the hell out of the house, you bum. You see, that, hard love, that's the father's role. And that's necessary. And the mother's love is necessary. So you have this yin-yang between yang is exclusive. Nah, you can't get through. It's kind of like the threshold guardian I was talking about the other night. The threshold guardian is a yang guardian. Nope, you don't measure up. Get out. Come back. Try again. Okay, you pass. You go through. And the mother is kind of like, oh, let all the children go through. You see? So this gets politicized, So the mother, the yin, is flip-flopping, passive liberal, feminine men, women, all this mix up, this inclusiveness, this letting everybody have it and do it and all that stuff, free pass for all. That's kind of like the yang criticism of the yin, you see. And so the yang is very hard-nosed and very rigid. And the yin is very fluid, flowing, wow, you see. And so you get the circle is the yin, and you get this for the yang. See, they go together. That's a sign for going together. You see, yin and the yang. You got to have it, but there's got to be balance. And when you get out of balance and you got more yang than yin, nature is the mother goddess nature is going to restore balance, just like an avatar. So when the yang was winning over the yin, nature rose up and all the animals came running to defeat the yang army, and balance was restored, you see. And this is in our own personal lives as well as in our social lives. It's everywhere. You can't escape it. So when you're out of balance, you may experience that as having a wobble. You see, something's up. What? I'm out of alignment. You get balanced. You go to the tire store and he balances and everything. Oh, it's so smooth now. And I was running to the left or the right before. Took my hands off the wheel and, I'm out of balance. There we go. So our nation is out of balance and it's restoring itself. And this is more than politics, and it's more than just Trump or Clinton or whoever's next. It's more than just one person or a political party. It's the balance of the cosmos. We are the cosmos, but we are awake and aware. We are the cosmos that's awake. That's all it is. So our creativity is cosmic creativity. Our love is cosmic love. Our consciousness is cosmic consciousness, you see. But when our view is very narrow, you see, very narrow, we just see our own little room or my own little country. And I don't see the wider angle, you see. So nature must have a wide angle view, and you need a narrow focus view too. You need a lens that does both. Wide, narrow, not one or the other. Thanks for dropping in. Happy trails to you.